Welcome to Fantasy Book Review Report for Shadow Prowler by Alexey Pehov. Or Pehov. Not exactly sure. Shadow Prowler is the first book in the Chronicles of Seattle trilogy. There's 3 books that have been translated to English. The writer actually himself has written way more books in Russian. Now, the idea behind my book review reports is for me to give you a general idea what the book is about and give you my overall opinion on it. I don't go into every single detail, I just go into what things I believe are the most important and the ones that were most remarkable, or the ones that I remember the most about the book that gave me the biggest impression. So let's talk about the book. The book is translated from Russian to English and has some minor changes, such as the Russian version of the book has 2 demons, the English version of the book has 1 demon. There's also minor translation errors, such as again with the demons. In one case, the translator has used the plural rather than singular, and there's also a situation where the main protagonist's name, which is Harold in English and Geralt in Russian, is actually being written as Geralt in the English version of the book. That only happens once. So overall, it's a very good translation. It's very nice and faithful, and I think the actual minor change about the removing 1 extra demon that the Russian version had is actually streamlines the plot a bit. Not that really big effect, but still not exactly takeaway effect either. Overall, the book is very easy to read. I've been reading it on the public transit, as I always read this kind of the fictional books, and I was able to easily pick it up, read it, get engrossed in that world, and that was not a problem. And overall, the prose is very beautiful. It's very descriptive. It's full of metaphors. Let me give you an example right here, where it's an early part of the book where the narrator, who's actually the protagonist in this case, also is telling us about the sky, and he refers to it this way: I wish the wind would drive its herd of grey fluffy sheep back across the sky. That's a very beautiful way to refer to clouds. Right there, it's that kind of stuff you're gonna see throughout the whole book. Very beautiful, very nice, very descriptive. Really enjoyed that about it. Now, the exposition in the book is also done really well. It's not like we are burdened with a whole bunch of stuff, or we are not given enough stuff to really understand what's going on. No, the exposition is done as necessary by the protagonist, who also narrates it, as in a way that it kind of explains to us what we need to know at the time. Few things are also given to us to that we understand that it is a much wider and bigger world than what we actually seeing in the book. The few places of people and names that are mentioned that are not really much explained beyond that. Now, the book does have a glossary at the back, so if you want to really find out, you can go and look there about those things. But you don't really need them for the story. But overall, it builds a bigger picture, saying that this is not just one little kingdom or one little village, one little town, right? There's a bigger world out there. There's a lot of things going on in that world, and this is just what you're seeing in the book is a local issue. And that's actually going to be kind of a theme throughout the whole book. That's what really made me like the book. Now, the protagonist is very interesting, and it's easy to relate to, because again, the protagonist kind of explains, if you're thinking, kind of explains more about himself, and it's pretty easy to understand what they're doing. There's a certain amount of humor involved, very easy to follow in terms of the story of the protagonist, which makes it very, very relatable in terms of because they understand why he acts the way he acts. So let's look at the actual story. The story is this: we have a master thief that gets mixed up in the affairs of the state. And this is very interesting here again, because if you follow the hero's journey as by Joseph Campbell, there's always a kind of refuse of the call to go on an adventure. There's a quite clear refuse of a call by the master thief to go on an adventure, but the master thief never really in the end accepts it to go on an adventure, while sometimes is the usual idea behind the hero is that the hero reevaluates the position. No, the master thief is trapped in a situation that he cannot get out. He has to go on this adventure. He has to go on this quest because he got no choice. That is a very interesting approach. And throughout the whole time, our main character Harold is always saying like, "Well, this is a really bad situation I got myself into. Yeah, I really wish I wasn't here. I really wish, this was not happening." Now, the first part of the story, we have our protagonist being very active because he's being in his element. He's a master thief and he's in his element. in the first part of the story, where he can use the skills that he knows to full advantage. And so most of that story is about him and what he does, and in all his different activities, which are very interesting, and which are kind of entertaining, I would say, to follow. Then there's a second part of the story where our protagonist Harold is very much passive, and he just relates the events that are happening around him, and where other characters are now doing most of the heavy lifting. Why? Well, he's a master thief, and in the second part of the story, he's out of that element. He's out of his element. He does not have the skills that apply, and he actually says that he's not a soldier. He doesn't know how to use a sword. All that is mentioned. He doesn't even know how to ride the horse properly. Overall, also, all this is mentioned, and he's out of his element. He's somewhere else, and for that reason, other characters are picking up. There's no such thing as that we have a super type of a character who knows everything and is able to use everything. No, we have a more realistic character. Something that again made me easily relate to this protagonist and enjoy the story for a much more close and realistic approach. I can't say that it's 100% realistic. There are a few elements about sword fighting and weapon fighting, such as use of a flail. Right now, in the historical community, there's a debate about how realistic are those flails that we see in the museums, and whether those are not actually something that was created after the fact, after the medieval period, and were more of a attempt to kind of fantasize that period, and so therefore they're not real because nobody actually used them in the medieval period. The argument for it being that they're extremely unsafe and to the actual person who's using them, or it would be extremely unsafe to the person your friend who's standing next to you in a battle line. Therefore, it's there's the thing that kind of outstanding about the issues of flail, and the writer uses them. The writer also quite clearly has not at this point handled much of a sword or that did any fencing. Therefore, some of the elements are kind of not that good. But I would kind of overlook it on the fact that these are minor elements overall, very minor, and the story itself is so much better, and so it compensates that way. Now, one thing again I liked about this book is like, well, it's not one thing. I would say that the reason I like this about this book is because it's a more I guess realistic type of approach to the storytelling. Is that we have a non-standard bad guy. He's not just a generic villain, right? Yes, he wants to destroy something. He has the reasons for it, but we never actually hear why the villain wants to do it. Just type of an idea, not physically present anywhere at all. We just relate it by other people saying that here's our villain, he is, from the nameless one, and have to deal with that person. And then throughout the book, we also get introduced to other possible villains, I guess, or maybe they are the main villains in the end in the book, who also have their own goals that might intertwine with currently the main villain, who is considered, who's called the nameless one. Maybe intertwining, maybe not. So all happening, and so it creates type of a more of a dynamic world, a much more interesting world that the book is based in. The story is not also about saving the world. It's kind of about the stories they try to save the kingdom. Yes, but the kingdom is not the world. There's more to it around there, and there's way more other threats to the whole kingdom and other kingdoms that are going on. This is just one story in that whole big world, and the rest of the world actually does not really give a damn about the situation here, because as we are told, the rest of the world does not actually believe in the nameless one, or they don't see the guy as a problem, or overall they got there are other issues that they need to take care of first, and that's therefore they're looking into that more. Finally, the fantastical races in this story are changed up to a certain extent to make them different from usual portrayal, right? It's not the usual stuff that we have seen that came out of the Lord of the Rings type of idea of elves, dwarves, orcs, right? Yes, orcs are considered to be kind of a bad, evil type of race. They have their own reasons for it, but elves are not exactly much better. At least they're not shown to be much better. Neither they are really that beautiful. It's made quite clearly that the elves are not beautiful. They don't have a beautiful voices or anything. All that is kind of a myth that is created. We have a race of goblins who do their own thing, and they're not exactly evil or anything like that. We have the dwarves and gnomes, the two type of a cousin type of a races who are very much related to each other. Same way actually as elves and orcs are related to each other. They are kind of a cousin race, and so therefore they look a lot alike. Same thing with dwarves and gnomes. They do look alike, but they have different customs and different things, such as dwarves actually don't have beards. In this case situation, the dwarves shave, all the gnomes don't. So all that changes up a bit of the dynamic. So it's no longer you kind of pointing the finger saying this is gonna be the bad guy, this is gonna be the good guy. No, we get more of that interesting situation here going on. Again, it makes the story more unique in that way. So what are the major themes in this book? The themes to me are always important because it what elevates the book from just a good book or very good book to a great one, right? Because you're not just telling an interesting story, you're also allowing the reader to go to take something away from it that they can use themselves, right? It's all the idea of what the people usually call in the writers community the human condition, that type of thing, right? So what are the major themes here? Well, first one is that this life is complicated, might not be clear where things will lead you, how things will end up, and this is one of the situations here. We have a protagonist and who's kind of gets involved without actually really wanting to be involved and being thrown around because of some situations that occur in the different other situations. So he's not exactly 100% in control of what's going on, and therefore it kind of creates a more interesting approach to the whole storytelling because we don't know what's gonna happen next. Yes, he's on this major quest, but there might be other things happening, and that's kind of translates into the other second theme. Is that just because you got something very much important going on doesn't mean that everything else will go on hold. That's what happens. Our main character is going on this quest for the crown, but doesn't mean that all his other problems, such as there's assassins, there's other thieves that gotta get a problem with him. There's other people who think that he stole something from them, who's got a problem with him. Doesn't mean that all those things will go away. No, he constantly has to deal with them, especially in the first part of the book, because he's in that area, and so always has to deal with all those people. So in a way, it kind of presents an interesting story again by making it more dynamic, by enriching the world, making it a bigger and interesting world. Finally, there's also the idea that affairs of the state are not always black and white, and so the officials of the state are not always good or evil either. We got the king, who seems to be very much admired. We got some officials who are either kind of admired or the people are scared of them, and the country does it, the kingdom does things the way they do for their own reasons. It's quite clearly pointed out. They kind of think it through. It might not always be because it's overall good. There are things happening. With the order of the magicians, there's magic in this world. They decide to do certain things, then they cover up some things because of that. We also told that we have corrupt officials going on around there, but in the end, there's also certain admiration going on for some of the officials in the court. So all that is a bit of more of a dynamic, a more living world rather than just black and white division, which makes me like this book a lot. When it comes to minor themes, well, minor themes there are a few. There's love between unequal people. That's actually referenced a few times in the book. The idea that people gain in the relationship across the social class lines, and there's a talk of social class divisions also here. Minor one, I think that one is that main theme as more of a builder for the, I guess, more of a world builder type of situation here when it comes to social class divisions. Finally, there's also a friendship camaraderie type of thing into the theme that once you go along with people, eventually kind of develop the friend type of a relationship, even if you might not be that close to them. I mean, originally there might have been issues originally. All this kind of shown, but it's a very minor themes out of, and you're gonna find this kind of themes usually overall in the books, but they don't really affect the main message of the book. So, what is my conclusion? Well, it's a very interesting and engaging narrative, which is beautifully written. I really like the way it was written. That's how it was written in Russian, actually, because I seen the Russian version of the book, and the translation is very faithful to that, thankfully. So all that is good. Sadly, the main themes, the major themes, are not that big for me. They don't really kind of have that much of an impact on me, so I can't really say that I did really come away and got something taken away, took something away from here, or ended up thinking about things. It's more of the idea that, well, this is really nice the way it's being told, but overall, I would say that this is a very good book. It challenges the standards of the usual standards of conventions of fantasy literature, because of how things are usually presented, and therefore that's what I really liked about this book, is this challenge to the usual convention of narrative in fantasy or even sci-fi genres. Right? So thank you for listening and for watching.